Now, there's a lot to dissect in this particular case. We've got a lawyer here with us, Kevin Gourlay. You're with Murphy Battista. And, proving wrongdoing may be very difficult depending on who we're talking about. In the case of the pedestrians, let's start there. What would they have to show happened?
It's not common to have cases against a pedestrian, and you'd have to show most likely that they did something out of the ordinary and something that's below the standard of care expected of a normal pedestrian.
And I guess standard of care is something we're going to be hearing a lot about in this lawsuit, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's central in every negligence case, and that is what would a reasonable person do, and you have to show that the defendant did something beneath what a reasonable person would have done.
And in the case of the bus driver, who's also named in the suit, same thing applies?
Same thing in terms of the reasonable standard of care of a bus driver, so you'd likely need to show that he wasn't paying enough attention so that when the cyclist fell into the road, he ought to have been able to stop without hitting the cyclist, but wasn't able to stop.
Now, how do you prove that, considering the victim is dead? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the testimony that you would rely on, right?
Yeah, it's always more difficult when the plaintiff is deceased. My suspicion in this case is that the TransLink bus will have some video footage, because buses now have a number of video cameras on them. There may be people that were on the bus that saw what happened. The pedestrian that was involved in it might have testimony about what transpired. But yeah, it's always more difficult when the plaintiff themselves can't give any evidence.
They're also suing the province. And that strikes me as unusual, because it seems like in this case, to me, when I look at it, the cyclists and pedestrians sort of know what they're getting into, right? They know what the lay of the land is, what the path is like. Mm-hmm. It's not like there's a random hole that's opened up that they weren't warned about. So what do they have to prove in that case?
It will be a difficult case against the province, and they'd have to prove that the province ought to have done something that would have prevented this, and they failed to. For example, the Broad Street Bridge now has those barriers up that separates the bike lane from traffic, so this likely wouldn't have happened on the bridge there.
But then is any sidewalk beside traffic fair game when it comes
No,
to
they would still have to show that the province ought to have known that this was particularly dangerous and failed to take action that they ought to have.
When it comes to damages at the end of the day, what's realistic? What's likely here?
In British Columbia, it's guided by the Family Compensation Act, which really only allows damages for the actual financial loss of the survivors of the deceased. So if she was a high-earning individual, it's possible that the damages could be significant, but I understand she was 61. If she was already retired, then the damages are likely very minimal.
Okay, Kevin Gourlay, good to talk to you.
Thank you very much.